You are listening to the On Purpose Podcast. What's up, everybody, and welcome to this week's show. As always, it's an honor and a privilege to serve you and to be able to show up wherever you're finding us around the world, on your favorite podcast apps, on YouTube, on social media. I just appreciate y'all, and without you, we couldn't do this. And this week's episode is certainly one of the more humbling I've had a chance to do. And when I first created the show, it was kind of what I had hoped would be the result, to be honest, is this young lady just saw us on social media. She listened to some of our episodes, and one of them struck a chord with her, and she reached out and asked if she could maybe come on and share her story with us. And that's exactly what I want to see in our movement that is the On Purpose Podcast, is people realizing the value in all of our stories. Not dependent on blue check marks or follower numbers or how much money you have in your bank account, but just the fact that if you are willing to share your story and you're living life with purpose, there's somebody out there that needs to hear it. So I'm excited to bring this week's guest on, Ariana Stone, and her passion, which is called Limitless Momentum, and to share the story of how she came to this and what she's going to do with it. But before we jump to that interview, I want to remind you and ask for you to please help support the cause by liking, subscribing, sharing, wherever you're listening to us, wherever you're consuming our content. Help us grow this On Purpose Podcast community and the movement that is designed and whose mission is to brighten the days of people around the world by providing inspiring, thought-provoking, and purposeful content. Thank you again for being here. Enjoy the interview with Ariana Stone. Ariana, welcome to the On Purpose Podcast, my friend. How are you today?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Honestly, I got to tell you, your story and what you're doing is exactly, when I started this over 4 years ago, what I call the movement, what I wanted to create. And that is that people find the value in their stories and are willing to share it with the world. So I'm just humbled that you reached out to come on the show, and I'm excited to share what you're up to with our audience.
No, I think what you're doing is great, and it's putting yourself out there to do something and to be vulnerable in a time where, and your stuff it's all about being uplifting, believing in yourself, taking time to, sit with yourself also and, become, your purpose or find what your purpose is. So no, I think what you're doing is fantastic.
I'm honored, I'm humbled by that, and I'm honored to be able to bring people's stories to life and to make sure that everybody understands their story carries weight and that somebody in the world needs to hear your story. We just got to get the courage to get it out there.
Absolutely.
Ariana,
it's the hardest part.
Yeah, for sure. And I got so much stuff. Like when I was researching you and getting ready for this, man, I was just excited because I was like, man, she is showing up. And honestly, you're fairly young in the law enforcement profession.
I am. I have 7 years.
7 years. And I gotta tell you, when I look at what you're doing, I wish I'd have known some of that back at the early part of my career. So I applaud you for sharing that now and going so public with a lot of this, because you're going to make a difference.
Trying. That's the goal.
Yeah.
That's the goal. But no, that's humbling. I appreciate that so much. More than you know.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you being here. It's going to be a lot of fun. We got some good stuff to get into, but I saw you just did a 50-mile ruck march not too long ago.
I did.
Right. All right. So I want you to think back to your training. That first day, you just didn't jump in and ruck march 50 miles. You had to work up to it.
Well, it wasn't 50 all at once. It was like do 50 total throughout the whole month of May.
For sure.
But even doing 2.5, 3 miles a day. And then I at first only had my work bag and I put some plates in there and I'm like, oh, this is terrible on my shoulders. And then I was like, all right, I got to buy a weight vest. So I bought the weight vest. So it was distributed a little more easily. But no, that there were a lot of podcasts listening to at the time and a lot of self-reflection, which was, I think, also part of the whole point, because it was for Stop Soldier Suicide. But, reflecting on my own things, what I have going on, and then the whole reason to, why we're we're both in this to try to help better everyone, better have people better themselves, take care of themselves.
I
So
love it. I love it. But before I get to the heavy lifting, right? Because we're gonna make people better today. But I gotta warm you up, my friend. We gotta know what goes on behind the scenes. Are you ready for this warm up?
I'm ready.
All right. You're stranded on a deserted island for the rest of your life. You get one food. What you gonna eat?
The current hyperfixation right now is my girlfriend makes a mean Cajun Alfredo pasta, and that's probably what I would go with.
Are you throwing chicken in that or sausage?
Yeah, chicken, and or like andouille sausage too if you wanted to. But yeah, Cajun chicken Alfredo pasta.
I gotta tell you, a lot of people lately have been going way too healthy. So if I gotta go visit one of my guests that's on a stranded island, I'm coming to yours.
Coming to mine. It was either that or a steak. But I'm like, you know,
yeah,
I got a little protein. I got carbs. Got my dairy.
Yeah,
you know, we can kind of hit everything.
Yeah, no, I'm coming to visit yours for sure. All right, you get one superpower. What power do you want, and what would you do with it?
Ooh. I'd either fly or teleport. So, backstory, we just got back from Montana. We were there for a week and visiting family. And I'm the worst traveler. I'm like, I want to get to where I'm going and I want to get there quickly. So it'd probably be flying.
Okay.
So I could do things more quickly.
Do more stuff.
Yeah.
Funny.
I move pretty quickly. And I think when travel, even though it can sometimes slow me down or be a pain, but yeah, I'd probably fly. That would be mine.
Where were you at in Montana?
We were in Kyla for a little bit, so around the Kalispell area. And then I have family that lives in Shoto.
Okay. Montana. Yeah, very nice. Very familiar with that area. We go to Montana all the time.
Yeah. It was nice. I hadn't been out there in a while, and we were due. We were due for a visit.
Sure. Favorite book?
I'm torn between two. Because Travis Barker's autobiography, Can I Say, I think I read that less than a week. Like I couldn't put it down. And it was just hearing his story, you know, obviously just starting as a dude and then playing in pop punk bands. And then you're one of the biggest pop punk bands in the world and still doing it at 40 something years old. Or Can't Hurt Me by David Goggins, a motivational one.
People love Goggins, huh?
I picked up the new one. And now I'm blanking on it. It's like Never Finished, I think. And I haven't gotten around to it yet. But yeah, that's on the next one to read.
Okay, I went and watched him speak live one time. It was super cool.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's no. That would be a bucket list thing for sure. That's pretty cool.
That's awesome. Yeah, I love Goggins. All right, you get to have dinner with one person. Okay, they could either have passed away or still be with us. Who are you having dinner with, and what do you want to learn from them?
I mean, I think people try to think of a celebrity or someone, but it would probably be my dad. He passed away in 2012, and not to get in the whole nitty gritty, but he wasn't really around. So I'd probably talk to him more about just his life, and like his background and stuff like that. Because I can get all I can from family and like my mom and stuff, but it's different coming from the source. So probably my dad.
Okay, nice. Did that relationship there kind of lead you towards law enforcement, or how did you find your way into law enforcement?
So I actually had friends that I grew up with and their dads worked for the department that I work now. And college, I was like, I could do this. And I did a couple ride-alongs and I was like, yeah, this seems cool. Let's do this.
Okay. So the first thing that attracted you to it was what?
Something different every day. Like not every call is the same, but you have your way of handling them and what you should be doing and stuff like that. But it was exciting because I actually like talking to people. I know sometimes people don't like talking to people, especially outside of work when we have to talk to people all the time. But like you're getting to interact with people. And again, sometimes they're great interactions, sometimes they're not. But I think that, and it was something different every day. And it's a challenge. And I like to be challenged and I like to succeed. So it was more of a challenge for me too, because it's like, all right, now you got to get hired. At least in Illinois, like you have to get hired. And then here's your background. Here's the polygraph. Here's your psych test. Here's your stress test. All right, now you're going to the academy for 4 months. Then you're going to come back and do all this in-house stuff. And then you're going to go through FTO. So it's almost like for that, it was, almost a year and a half of, all this preparation to finally be on your own.
Yeah.
So,
I love it. What would you say was the biggest mental obstacle that you had to overcome to knowing you could do this, that you could succeed in this career field?
I think it's the compartmentalizing so that you just don't eat yourself alive, pretty much. I think for me, it was emotional. Like, I wear my heart on my sleeve. Like, you could tell by my face, you can tell if I'm mad, sad, irritated. Like,
right.
I could never hide it. So I think for me, trying to learn to compose it on certain scenes or certain situations for myself, but also for the person that I'm either helping, talking to, dealing with. I think that was kind of the bigger struggle for me, and trying not to take it too much to heart at that time, especially being brand new, because I'd never seen a dead body. How am I going to console somebody that just lost a loved one? And then you think about, at least I do, and then I would think about, oh my God, what if this was my mom? What if this was my sibling? And I'm like, okay, I can't think like that. So trying to, I think compartmentalizing things was the big thing.
That's interesting you say that, right? That I can't think like that, which is very true.
Yeah.
Right. Like
at the time, maybe.
We can't take everybody's burdens on our own, because our families have their own burdens. We have our own emotional burdens to take everybody else's. But on the flip side, it's just like you said, it's that reflective, like, okay, if this was my family, how would I want to be treated? That allows you to show up empathetically, which is what's required a lot of times.
Absolutely. Because you don't want to be, oh, this big stoic, like, you're still a human. You still have emotions. You still have to, you still got to be empathetic, be a human being. You still have feelings. I mean, then there's some people on the job that don't think that, or that, have been there for 20 years and they're like, well, this is how it is. All right. However you're going to do it, or done it the past 2 decades, but I'm not going to change your mind. So.
Yeah, so I want to steal one of your own lines from you, because as I was researching stuff, I was super pumped by your little one-liners, and that is, you got to show up.
Yeah.
Right? You say show the fuck up, I think, on some of your shirts.
Yeah.
And I think when I hear you telling me that story, that's what that means, is you got to show up for yourself and realize you're still human. And that you're going to have highs and lows, ups and downs, and emotions. And that is ultimately going to allow you to be successful in this career.
I would agree, because even like, I'm off for the next week. Like, I don't go back to work till Tuesday, and it's going to be a whole different ballgame. And I'm like, I don't know what I'm walking into. I haven't been there for 2 weeks. What's changed? What have I missed? Anything good? So, but just showing up to work, especially I think in this profession, is something that you kind of just, that's your baseline. Like, I have to show up, because I don't know how my day is going to go. It could be super slow. It could be busy as hell. And, you don't know what kind of day you're going to have.
Yeah.
So, but I think in any aspect of your life, like, there's times especially with the brand, oh God, I'm stressed out about it all the time, but it's like a good stress, and it's a work in progress. But I'm like, okay, if I get down about something, or something I haven't figured out, or it's not going the way I want to, I'm like, all right, let me show up, put this little effort to it. And I don't know what's going to happen. Nothing could progress, but I could also have a light bulb moment, and it could get better. So trying to be nicer to myself that way has been big, about just showing up. And if it doesn't go the way I want it to immediately, or what I think is going to happen, but it's not the end of the world, that's been a big thing for me to deal with.
Yeah, for sure. I love it. And you're going to go back to work next week, and you're going to be better. And here's how I know.
I hope so.
No, I already know it. I can feel it. I already know it, because you spent your days off investing in shows like this, and sharing your story with communities, and working on your own brand that's designed to make people around you better. You will show up better. The world works like that, right? If I'm trying to make people better, I will get better. If on my days off, I just go sit at home and I bitch and complain about having to go to work, and I'm negative about this and that, there's no, like, I'm not showing up better. There's no way that works.
Yeah. Don't get me wrong. I have those days. I think everyone does, but
you got to process them.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Which is why I like what you say, show the fuck up. That means, to me, when I read that, I'm like, that means show up all the time. When I'm not feeling good, I show up for myself. Because before I can show up for the community or my agency or my buddies or life, I got to show up for me.
I agree. And I think there's some people though too that haven't, I don't want to say found that, but or figured that out. So sometimes I'm like, hey, if you got it like for your kid, if you got to show up for your kid and that's what you're driving force right now, and that's what you need to show up for, great. But in that process, add yourself to that too.
You have to.
Yeah.
Right.
Or else you're not going to be useful to anybody.
No. And I did an episode on this, I don't know, a month or two ago, and I talked about being more selfish. Right. One of the words that drives me nuts is people are like, be selfless. And I'm like, no, you don't want me to be selfless. If I am less of me, I'm no good to you. You want me to be selfish. You want me to be my best me. So when I show up for you, I'm the best. Now I can give to you because I gave to me. And
it's establishing those boundaries too in order to do that or get to that point for sure.
So when did you get to this point in your career? Because I saw you had a quote out there that said you worked on getting the self-awareness to admit that things are going on, which I think is critical for law enforcement. To admit when we're not good, just like your shirt. You good? When did you get to that point in your career where you realize, like, wait a second, I got to be proactive in my self-awareness?
I think the big thing for me, and obviously, said it already, but like I still deal with anxiety, but to the point where it felt crippling, was probably in 2020. Like we had our batch of riots in my town, and it wasn't so much a scared thing, just like an oh shit thing. Like obviously 2020 as a whole was just a shit show, but like that was after those, and I came home and I'm like, why do I feel anxious going to work? Why do I feel, it was very uneasy feelings, and I hadn't felt like that before. Like you get anxious for a test or something else going on, but I'm like, I'm visibly like, I'm shaking. I don't feel well. I don't know what's going on. I hadn't experienced it. So I'm talking to my girlfriend about it. She's like, have you never been anxious? And I'm like, this is anxiety. I'm like, I don't know what this is.
Right.
I'm like, I had other bigger things happen to me in life, but I guess never had that kind of reaction to it. And I think it was probably a few months before she was like, you need to go to the doctor. I was like, okay. Yeah. You say so. And I had already been seeing a therapist at that time too, or I started seeing a therapist at that time. And that helped immensely because even she doesn't push me to talk about things, that I'm not quite ready to talk about. She's like, I just learned you come to things in your own time. She's like, you eventually get there, but if you come to it in your own time, it's good. So that's been 3 years of consistent therapy so far. And just being honest with myself.
What is that?
And how I'm actually feeling.
Yeah. What does that look like? Walk me through the process, Ariana, of being honest with yourself.
It's uncomfortable. It's really uncomfortable. I think to me, it's almost like you're admitting that you have faults or admitting that you have weaknesses. And no one likes to do that. That's not a good feeling because everyone wants to think of, oh, I did this great. I did this great. I succeeded in this. Whatever it may be, but understanding that you also are human and can't do everything, and that sometimes things are heavy, and sometimes there's things that you've been able to shake off in the past, but this might be the one thing that, nope, I'm going to need a little extra help. So for me, it was being comfortable, being uncomfortable, and being vulnerable with how I was feeling and sharing that with my loved ones and my therapist. So that, at least for me, that's what it is.
Yeah. No, I think that's super. Just being honest with yourself. I think that's one of the most difficult conversations we have because that's the one person that we knows all our lies.
Yeah.
Right.
All of our fronts.
They know it all. They know all the make-believe stories we tell ourselves. And how you've been very public about this, which I super admire.
Thank you.
How's the reception been with your coworkers and stuff? Like how do you feel like you've been received if they consume some of your social media and stuff?
Supportive. Like my best friends and and my coworkers that I work with, they're supportive. I think some people still I don't want to say brush it off, but they're kind of just like, oh, that's kind of cool that she's doing that, but not letting it sink in, or want to support me, but still like may not totally get it. Maybe, if that makes sense.
Absolutely.
Or apply it to themselves. But no, for the majority of it, people have been receptive and supportive. It's not like the whole department's like, yeah, go Ariana.
Yeah.
But, you know, but it's nice. It's not like people are just like, well, that's fucking stupid. Or like, this is a waste of time. Why would you think that was a good idea? No, I mean, someone may have thought that, but they haven't said it to me yet. So,
well, I would tell you that I think that is one of the biggest and best progressions in our profession from when I started way back in the day to where we're at now, is that it's actually okay to admit you're not well. And that we still got a lot of work to do, because there's still a lot
100%.
of cops showing up that are just brushing everything aside and everybody's good. But like, honestly, we wouldn't even had this talk when I started back in the mid-90s. There was no way that any cop was going to admit they weren't well for fear of repercussions.
Yeah. And I think that's still part of it. Like, people are thinking, okay, well, are they going to put me on leave? And now I got to go talk to a therapist or a psychiatrist, and then they're going to be the ones to determine if I'm okay. But that's not how it is. Like, obviously, if we're at that point, that's something completely different. We're way past just acknowledging what we haven't dealt with. But yeah, I think just because you're admitting that you're struggling doesn't mean that you can't do your job.
Right. And I think that's where we got to get as a profession. And I applaud you for what you're doing, because the earlier we recognize, okay, this call bothered me, or this interaction bothered me. I'm coming home and my heart's racing and I'm anxious. Like, I don't know why. Let me figure this out. The sooner we can do that, it's far less likely that it's going to get to that crisis point where we've been suppressing for 20 years.
Exactly. Like, just trying to nip it in the bud for something else, because you already know there's going to be another call, there's going to be another situation, and that's just going to snowball it.
Yeah. And I think what we lose in that is, outside of work, the people you love suffer when you don't take care of yourself.
Absolutely.
Right? Because when you're coming home not feeling well from the job, there's no way you can just hang your uniform up and switch and be the bubbly, gregarious, excited, loved one that everybody used to know.
Yeah. I mean, there's definitely times where, like, I'll come home and Tara's talking to me. I'm like, you got to give me like 10 minutes.
Sure.
And it may not even have been like a big, huge situation that happened, but it was busy, or I don't know, I was irritated by some call or something happened. But I was like, give me 10 minutes and then we can talk.
Yeah.
And that's been a good, because it's not that I don't want, because that's what I've said. I'm like, it's not that I don't want to talk to you, or what you're saying to me isn't important. I was like, but I need to make that switch.
Yeah. We have to have that process.
Mm-hmm.
Good. Talk to me about being nicer to yourself.
That's a work in progress. That's a work in progress. My mom even says this. She's like, I don't know why you're so hard on yourself. And she didn't put, some crazy expectations on me. I mean, of course she had expectations on me when I was younger, but I don't know. I like to be able to do everything that I try and want to be good at. And if something doesn't go well, like, for example, I can't draw for shit. And so trying to come up with designs for the brand, I'm like, what am I going to do? Luckily, Tara is very, very artistic and helps me out. But like, I'm trying to explain to her what I'm seeing in my brain, because I physically can't draw it. But that's also something that I know that I can delegate if need be. Whether that's, hey, Tara, can you draw this up for me? Or going on, whatever website to have someone create it for me. But being nicer to myself that I can't figure things out, or that I have to admit that I'm not good at everything. Yeah.
So how do you handle that?
If I feel myself getting too worked up or too angry, now I'm not like this crazy angry person, but I would get really frustrated with myself.
Yeah.
And it would be a lot of negative self-talk. And I still find myself in that, not often, but if it's something bigger that's going on. But I can also, it's quicker for me to rebound and be like, all right, let's either take a break from this. It's fine. We're going to figure it out. What's something else? What's a different way we can approach this? And then it's also hard for me sometimes to ask for help. Not like with my, not with like my mental state or anything,
Sure.
but I want to try to figure it out on my own. Or if I know that it's something I can't figure out or wouldn't have the patience to figure out, then I'll ask. So yeah, the negative self-talk has been something that I've had to work on.
You have a specific exercise you do or a ritual if you start catching that negative voice creeping up and it's getting louder and louder? Is there anything particular that you do to quiet it or bring it back into its place?
Breathing.
Okay.
The box breathing.
Yeah, box breathing is super good.
Box breathing. Sometimes I'll actually yell.
Yeah.
Not at somebody, but it feels, because I'm getting that worked up, like it feels that's a release. And then by the time I'm done yelling, I'm tired. But like it's, and mind you, it's not like I'm yelling for minutes. It's like, like 10 seconds.
Yeah.
But feeling that frustration like leave my body, I'm not hurting myself. I'm not hurting anybody else. It's not like I'm scaring any, you know what I mean? Like it's just, I'm not yelling at somebody. It's just like, it's something that has to get out. Box breathing or walking away from whatever I'm trying to do.
Yeah.
Been one too.
That's a good.
I try. I never used to be like that. It never used to be like it.
What do you mean?
But no, I'd be the one to like, if I was working on something in the garage, I'd be the one throwing a wrench, like again, not at anyone or anything, but like just out of frustration. And, but then I've learned also taking the time to come back to it. It's like studying for a test. Like if you're trying to cram for something and you're just like, why isn't this sinking in?
Yeah.
And you take 10, 15-minute break from it and almost coming back with it with new eyes, or looking at something, fresh. Sometimes it's helpful.
I love it. When I was training for my first mixed martial arts fight, anxiety was a huge thing. Like, you're about to get out in front of thousands of people and take your shirt off and get into a fist fight. So there's some nerves around that.
Oh, yeah.
And we had a meditation coach that would come work with the fight team. And one of the things she did, she had us work on our breathing, box breathing for sure. 4 in, hold for 4, 4 out, hold for 4. But the other thing she did I found super helpful was we actually named our negative self voice. Like it had its own personality.
Really?
So you could be like, oh, Charlie, I see you showed up. You bad motherfucker, right? Like you're here to talk to me. You're telling me all the shit I'm not good at. I see you, Charlie. Now I'm going to have to put you back in the corner.
Yeah.
And just by doing like that little simple, stupid exercise, like old me would have been like, that's the dumbest thing I ever heard. But I'm like, no, if this works, like I got to try it. Because I want to win this fight. I want to perform well in front of all these people. I want to perform well for me. And it's been huge. As even in more recent life, working through, like you said, anxieties and just some of the ups and downs of the uncertainty of our times, recognizing negative self-talk is the first step, right? Knowing what's going on. And then releasing it, however you choose to release it, whether it's going for a walk, talking back to it. I like to talk back to it. So sometimes people might think I'm a crazy dude just walking around the neighborhood. But I'm talking to the bad me. I got to get him out. I got to let him know I see him. I feel you. I appreciate all your concern that you're telling me what I can't do, but I'm going to have to do it anyhow. I'm going to have to put you back in the corner.
Yeah. Did you watch, no, I'm not going to think of the name of it, but it was Jonah Hill's kind of documentary with his therapist on Netflix. And it's the name of his therapist is like the name of the documentary, but he talks about different, so it's basically him interviewing his therapist and their time over the years. But he talks about certain things and he talks about his shadow.
Yeah.
And and then you talking to your negative self-talk and giving a name made me think of when he talked about the shadow.
Yeah. We all have it, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And the negative self-talk has been something since I was as young as I can remember. And again, it's not like my mom was like, she's not the voice in my head that's giving this to me. I think I hold myself to a very high standard.
Yeah.
And if I don't meet that standard, I still get hard on myself.
Yeah.
And I've always been like that, whether it was sports, life, whatever it may have been.
I love it. And you just got to temper it. Like I want people around me to have high expectations for themselves, because then they also have high expectations for me and we all rise together. But at the same point, we got to do what you're talking about, have a little grace for ourselves if we come up short. most of
Yeah,
the time it's not the end of the world. We get another shot. We just got to learn the lesson.
exactly.
So talk,
Exactly.
so talk to me about your brand, Limitless Momentum, and
It's
how you decided to, because you started in March of 2022. So
yes.
you're working through some of the anxiousness and just the uncertainty of COVID in 2020, and you come up with this brand. What led you to do this, and what has been the reach for you?
I think just my own experience with, like I said, I was like, I had never felt that type of anxiety before. And like I said, it was like you've other not big traumatic, but like I got hit by a drunk driver when I was 18, and I have titanium rods in my tibia and in my femur. So basically having to walk again, and bigger life things that happen. And I'm like, and all I did was go through a stressful situation, and now I feel like this. Like, how can I go through that big thing for years, and then I have this one incident, and I feel like my whole body's been rewired. So I think having to sit and deal with that was something that I wanted to make known, because I was like, I can't be the only one feeling this way.
Oh, I
Whether it
love
was,
it.
like from the riots, from whatever other personal things you have going on, whatever it is, I'm not the only one feeling this way. Or, for example, how many times, that I go to a mental health call a shift at least once,
Right.
and again, like Limitless isn't like law enforcement heavy like I want it to be for everybody. That's just my experience.
Yep.
And that's how I came into, I guess, dealing with mental health. But yeah, I think there were different like side hustles that like Tara and I would kick around. And this was something that stuck a little longer, or that I would talk about more. And she was like, "Oh, you're actually kind of serious about this." I'm like, "Yeah, why not?" I'm like, let's see what happens. And here we are, a year and a half later. But yeah, I looked into what it would be to do t-shirts, a design, different things that I, could think of. But I think that's been a struggle too, because it's like I'm not a big social media person, but this has forced me to come out of my comfort zone and try to be a little more, obviously not trying to be some big influencer, but try to put it out there.
Yeah.
And, or different marketing, seeing how things work, seeing how, the back end of a business works. And it's not it is a challenge, but it's kind of cool because I'm like, this is a skill I didn't have.
Sure.
And I'm not completely sucking at it. So, it's not just going downhill.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it was just based off of my experience, what I went through. Yeah. And I was like, I know there's people feeling like this, because I also deal with these people almost daily. Whether it's, it could be way out there where I'm dealing with a schizophrenic person who's hallucinating, but obviously I'm not to that point, but it's still mental health, and it's still people that struggle. And whether it's not that person specifically, or if they're just kind of way off of it and we've been dealing with them for how long, but their family that also has to, that tries to help them or be there for them or get them the right medication, make sure they take their medication, it's for them too.
Yeah.
For everybody.
What's been the biggest reward you've felt so far since you started the brand? And what I love is you went outside law enforcement, because I think sometimes cops pigeonhole themselves into thinking like whatever they're doing is only for law enforcement, because you're 100% correct. The whole world needs mental health awareness. We all need to work on it. Mental health is no different than physical health, right? Like we're working out every day to get our body. We should be working our mind to feel good. So what's been the biggest reward that you've personally gotten since you started really stepping out on this?
Honestly, I think just support, like seriously, like I think that people are actually, or someone telling me like what you're doing is cool or what you're doing is great.
Yeah.
Like that, it wouldn't matter how many sales I had, or, I think it's the actual, people buying it, not just because they like me or they know me, but buying it because they like it or they resonate with it. That, I think that's the biggest reward, is just hearing that.
I love it. And now most of your shirts, because you're primarily doing shirt products, right?
Yeah.
And most of them have quotes.
Yeah.
You don't have like a huge graphic, like it's your logo. You have a logo, but most of yours has very, very direct messaging.
To the point, subtle and to the point.
I love it. All right. So now I'm assuming there's a story behind each of the little slogans.
Yeah. Or I just liked it.
So
I was
talk
like,
to
I can
me.
put this on a shirt.
All right. So talk to me about this one. You're not finished. What did you like about that one?
You're not finished. Like the, and then I think it tied in with the limitless momentum. Like you have the momentum to keep going. Like just keep going. I heard this the other day. Tara actually said it. You know, like if you're feeling anxious or whatever, it's like get through the next minute, then the next hour, the next day, the next week. So thinking of the things, even though how you might be feeling now is super big and like the end of the world, it's not. And or someone, you know, maybe being on the brink of contemplating suicide, something like that, just being like, you're not done. You still have a purpose here.
I love it.
And then it's a little morbid because I put it on a headstone, but
It's all
you know,
good. It's imaging,
yeah,
right? Because
yeah.
if you,
And but that was like what I thought. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. But that's what I kind of took it as is, you know, if someone was on the edge of contemplating taking their life, unless you're getting cremated or whatever, you know, someone's going to put a headstone and, you know, loving brother, father, son, friend, whatever is going to be on there. But just that reminder of being like, hey, you're not done. You're not finished.
I love it. I love it. Show the fuck up. Where'd that one come from?
I heard, so I'm a big Panic at the Disco fan. Leads, huge. Ever since 2006,
Oh man,
been hooked.
All right,
Been hooked.
Didn't know
But,
that. I didn't know we were segueing there. I didn't see that one coming, but I take
no,
it.
so this was the little backstory. So even the Just Show Up shirt. So lead singer, Brendan Urie was on, I think he was either doing an interview or like a Twitch stream or something, but talked about how he was going to do a show on Broadway, Kinky Boots, and how he was super nervous, super anxious about it. Just telling his manager, you know, I don't know if I can do it. It's too much. And the manager pretty much was like, you just got to show up and see how it goes. And he had a great run on Broadway. But if he would have listened to his negative self-talk or his anxious voice, he may not have ever gone. So that's kind of where the either just show up or show the fuck up came from. Like, because again, Brendan Urie could have never gone to Broadway and not had that happen, not done that run. But then he went and did it, and it was successful. Could have been something he missed out on.
Okay, you good?
You good? Asking the simple question. You good? Like you asked that, right? Oh, how you doing? I'm good. How are you? And it's the quick like exchange in the hallway, or you know, but actually taking the time to listen to somebody. Because I was like, how you doing? I'm like, oh, I'm all right. How are you? And sometimes people will, oh, all right. Why only all right?
Yeah.
Or, you know, be like, oh, I'm good. Or, you know, again, just in passing. But taking the time, we don't listen as a society. Mm-hmm. And even kind of touching on what you said earlier about being selfish, I think that there absolutely is a degree that you have to be selfish. But sometimes I can take the 10, 15 minutes out of my day to listen to somebody, you know, vent about their problems. Or what do I do at work every day? Listen to people tell me about their problems. And sometimes, well, you know, sometimes it's a little out there. It's a little not relevant to whatever we're dealing with. But, you know, if someone's actually going through something hard and they need somebody to talk to, you know, here we are. So, but taking the extra 10 minutes, even on a call with a friend, with, you know, someone you're small talking with at Starbucks, like that could make somebody's day.
Yeah.
And you don't know that. Or whatever they reciprocate to you could be something new to you, or to learn, or something you hadn't thought of, or just make an impact. Because people talk about how, you know, the Starbucks person like told me they liked my hair today. And they were like, oh, that's the little pickup I needed. Or the little nice compliment. Like you can also take the 5-10 minutes. And I'm guilty of it. I think we all are. Like we get wrapped up in what we have going on. You know, and you're like, well, I'm dealing with this, this, and this. I don't have time for this. Sometimes life is like that. But that's been something else that I've been trying to do too, is be a better listener.
Yeah, no, that's critical. We'd all benefit if we slowed down and listened to each other a little more. And
Yeah.
if we really listen and someone said they were all right, or a lot of times if they say I'm good, there's a good follow-up question there, like, okay, what's going on? Right? But we
Yeah.
don't recognize it if we don't slow down and listen. What about this one? How are you really? I saw that on your website.
How are you really? No, I think that's a follow-up to like you good. Or like even I was listening to the podcast that yesterday from you, that asking that follow-up question or realizing, because you have your close people that I'm like, hey, how you know, no, I'm all right. And like, no, really, how are you?
Right.
Like we both know that something's up.
Yeah.
Like, and that's the thing too, you don't want to be pushy about it, but also like, hey, I'm here if you want to talk. I'm not going to push you to talk, but just know that I'm here. I think that's also a big thing to even follow up on, because I think that's something that's said too, and people mean it. They genuinely mean like, hey, if you need anything, like let me know, reach out,
Right.
whatever. But I think trying to make that person at that time, maybe if they don't feel like talking, or like me, if I'm already on the brink of tears and someone asks me, are you okay? I'm like, I'm fine. It's, and then it just makes the tears flow. But I'm like, all right, give me 5 minutes and I can talk about it, or how a day, whatever. But yeah, I think just being genuine and actually giving a shit about how another human feels. Plain and simple.
Thank you. Yeah, life's pretty easy. If we just stop for a minute and go, wait a second, I actually care how the other humans around me feel.
Yeah. Or it could be something where something's totally out of left field going on with somebody, or someone that you're even close to and you had no idea what was going on. You're like, oh shit. Like, all right, let's talk this one through. Or, if you need me, whatever it is, please let me know.
Yeah, I love it. Because here's one of the saddest realities for us in our profession is we spend all of our time training for external threats, bad guys, riots, shootings, blah, all this. 90% of our training in law enforcement goes to external threats, yet the biggest threat to us ever since I got in the profession stands true through this day is suicide. Suicide kills more cops than any bad guys almost every single year since I got into law enforcement back in the 90s. So I applaud you for what you're doing, because it's stuff like this. It's conversations like this. It's you putting it out into the world and say, hey, I can be a high-performing law enforcement officer, serve my community, and also take care of myself by admitting when I'm not good, that can start the momentum, the limitless momentum to change those statistics.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that too, like, it's just, if I can help one person, whether it's by someone reading my shirt when I go to the store later, or, or because people will be like, oh, I like that. Or people will literally say to me, you good? And I'm like, what? And I have my shirt on. I'm like, no, I'm doing well. How are you? But, yeah, I think, like I said, like obviously this started because of my career, but people don't, not even our profession, but I think people don't want to admit when they're struggling.
Yep.
And admitting that is the hardest part. And it's like, it's the first step. Admitting and acknowledging that, it's not everything's all right.
Well, I'm humbled by you, my friend. And it's just a privilege to sit and just feel your energy and your care for the world, the fellow humans. So I applaud you. And you are reaching people. You just stick with it, and maybe it's one person at a time, maybe it's 100 at a time, but it's one more than would have been reached if we didn't talk.
No, absolutely. And thank you for having me. Obviously, I was like, oh, I like this podcast. Let me just slide into the DMs and see what's up.
I love it. No, I mean, honestly, I people that take the time to do that, I'm going to talk with them all day, every day, because that's genuine.
That's the thing too. It's like, yeah, and you don't know if you don't ask.
I love it. So where can our community follow you and what you got coming up and support you in your mission?
Yeah. So Limitless Momentum co is the website. The same for socials, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, Limitless Momentum Co. And then also I just throw this out there. Every month we have a different organization that we donate to. So 10% of our proceeds every month go to a different organization. So like this is being, I don't know when this is going to get released, but this is being recorded in June. So we do Canine for Warriors. And what it sounds like is that they provide canines for veterans suffering like PTSD, traumatic brain injuries. I think it was also military, like sexual assault, survivors. And if I remember correctly, they try to take shelter dogs or like rescue dogs and train them to become service dogs. Yeah.
I love it. So where do
I know part of it is for sure.
For sure. People order the shirts right off the website?
Yep, off the website. Absolutely.
What's your best
I'm packing everything so it'll come straight from me.
Oh, it's coming with love.
It's coming with love. Coming with love.
Yes. What's your top selling shirt so far? What slogan?
Ooh. The keep looking forward one, the tan one, that's a big one. But also the check on your people too, with the skeleton kicked up at the desk.
Yeah.
That's a big one too. And the get out of your head. That was the OG one.
Get out of your head. Yeah.
The get out of your head. Those three are the tops. Yeah, those three are the top three for sure.
I love it. My friend, it was an honor to have you on the show. I can't wait to share this with our community and to continue watching what you're doing. And you just keep creating the momentum you got. It is definitely limitless.
I appreciate you. Thank you so much for having me. This has been a great conversation. And it's been, this made my day so far, honestly.
It's mutual, my friend, mutual.
And remember, team, life is far too short to live any other way than on purpose. We will see you all again next week.